Highway 9. All right.
So we're somewhere down in
so right about here.
And heading east, so it only heads into more populated area and probably possibly toward the campus as well. Where's the campus here, Greg? You know,
the campus is
this.
This is the campus right here. Yeah, and this is all very, very heavily populated. There are homes after homes after homes, some businesses within there. I've been to, as you have, to Norman many times. So this is very heavily populated.
All right, let's go back to the radar here, guys. Again, we've been monitoring what is now apparently a tornado that's on the ground very near Norman, Oklahoma. This has just developed within the last 15 minutes in through here. Hopefully it will be short-lived because we've got a lot of population, as we've been just showing you on Google Earth, and a lot of people potentially impacted. The good news is, at least for the people here, they're very, very tornado savvy, so they know what to do, and this is a very highly broadcast area in terms of weather, so people are, I'm sure, taking cover at this time as we're sharing with really the rest of the nation what's going on here around the Moore area. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, and yeah, very, very close to the Norman area. It's on a surging gust front, so it's going to move rather quickly to the east, probably about 30 miles per hour at least, but unfortunately west to east right across Norman, Oklahoma, with a hail that could be there as well as in the area about halfway between Norman and Moore, Oklahoma. Moore is a site of an at that time, original Fujita Scale 5 tornado back on May 3rd, 1999. It has been hit several times since then. This whole area around the Oklahoma City, Norman area is in what we call traditional tornado alley. It's an area that Oklahoma County, for example, in Oklahoma gets hit by a tornado on average about once per year. This is a little on the early side. The typical prime time for the Oklahoma City, Norman area is May, but anywhere from the last half of April through the first week in June or so they're pretty much their main tornado season. They get a little bit of a secondary peak in October, but unfortunately today could be one of those days with that possibility of a tornado and possibly coming right across the Norman area.
Greg, grab graphics 15 again. We just had a report of power poles down at Oklahoma 9 and also Southwest 24th. So on graphics 15, did it lock up on us?
I hit the wrong button.
Oh, okay. He's got that area for us, which, as you can see, where we may have had a touchdown with that tornado. But again, heading to the east, as this is, into a very, very populated area, and pretty close just to the northwest now, the campus potentially of Oklahoma. So again, guys, nothing new from the chopper at this point. Greg's been talking about the radar and analyzing what could be certainly a rain-wrapped tornado. It was when we initially brought it to you there, so it's not going to be very, very easy to see. We do have K4 up again. It's going in and out, unfortunately, so we're not going to be able to show you what they're looking at and through here. But either way, again, this is a very populated area in Norman, Oklahoma, and I can only hope that everybody's as savvy as all the meteorologists that certainly live down there and do such a great job, and that we know, Greg, we have a lot of colleagues that we know very well that live in Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah, including our own storm riders, Simon Brewer, Justin Drake, who are may very well be tracking this storm because they live there. They, as has been sometimes the case in the past, while they're tracking the storm, they're also worried whether or not their apartments are going to be still there when they get there. So this indeed is a dangerous storm.
And there, speaking of the storm riders, Greg, there's a live picture from them right now. They're obviously on the road in a rainy situation. You mentioned the rain-wrapped tornado, so they're near Verdon, Oklahoma. We understand at the present time. There's traffic out there. It doesn't look like it's moving all that quick though, so
no, and
a
lot of rain. You can see the windshield wipers going. They started off a little bit down to the west-southwest of the Norman area and are probably working their way back to the east, I would guess, at this point, and are probably gotten in some of that intervening rain.
Greg, as we watch these pictures, guys, and wait for more confirmation of damage, I mean, the good news is we're not getting any more damage reports at this time. The bad news is there may very well be some that we have to talk about. What took this so long to go today? I mean, we kind of watched it have an appendage. It showed at times it had a little bit of rotation, but then it never really came around until, unfortunately, the metro area.
Well, it's different combinations of instability and low-level winds that allow for the tornado to occur. Today, the low-level wind shear is a little bit on the weak side. It's not the strongest. The instability is there. The storms went early in the day, actually, in terms of thunderstorm potential. This is only 4 o'clock or a little after 4 o'clock there. So typically 5 to 9 is prime tornado time on average for the United States. So it's actually gotten a little bit early start, but it's not tapping the strongest of low-level wind shear. So, and with the humidity not exceedingly high, still a little bit of that dry air around, the storms have had a tendency to in this one in particular to really gust out, and that hopefully is saving the day a little bit. We've had a new radar image come in here showing now that gust has pushed into the southeast side of the Norman area. I'll pull up the new velocity. Oh my, I don't like the looks of that though. The rotation signature, the tornado vortex signature there has tightened since it was in the last 5 minutes. And so that is certainly not something that we wanted to see. I'll leave that there, showing where the rotation
where that is in terms of the reflector. So it's right in the rain.
And again, it's rain wrapped right over or very close to over some portion of central Norman, Oklahoma is where the strong rotation is showing up at this point.
If you're in Norman right now, hopefully you've already taken cover and you're either got the radio up in the other room or the TV on in the other room as well. And again, guys, what we see here is some very, very strong rotation right into the Norman area. Very populated area where we've already gotten confirmed reports at Oklahoma 9, Highway 9 there and Southwest 24th of power poles down. There have been reports of debris as well. We've got our storm riders out there. They are obviously within that range, so you're not going to see this tornado. This isn't going to be one of these classic plains tornadoes where it's like, oh my goodness, at least from what we see in this current time. I mean, sometimes these open up, Greg, but this right now, that's not the case.
No, right now it is definitely, I've zoomed in one more time. You were probably may have been watching me or the video, but it is definitely, the circulation that we're seeing is definitely underneath the heavy rain. It's at this point turning into almost a little mini comma head within this bow that has surged out, and it's almost in that rotating comma. You can almost imagine here this comma punctuation mark with that rotation that's sitting right inside what we sometimes call the rotating head. So it's transitioned a little bit from what was trying to be a well-defined hook echo to one now that is an embedded mini bow echo kind of tornado, but that doesn't mean that it is a weak one. These sometimes can be very strong as well.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately what we don't see in through here is anything that could come up and interrupt this. It looks like it's kind of on its own right now.
Yeah, it certainly is, and with this warm, moist air coming in, the whole parent thunderstorm, what could happen is that we could get an additional circulation develop here or somewhere else. Usually with the main crest of the bow echo heading this way, usually the biggest tornado threat will be somewhere to the left or somewhere to the north of where that surging takes place. And unfortunately that's right now right over Norman. Yeah. But we could get something that's forming even a couple miles north and then ultimately northeast of Norman as well, that in this broader, what would be the broader hook echo that we originally were seeing. So we've had a little bit of a transition going on here with sometimes we would call this, and there were brand new came in. So this would sometimes be called the gust front or the flanking line. And let's see if the velocity is caught up to this. No, we're still back in the previous velocity there. So we'll catch up within a minute or so. But at this point, given what we have seen, I'm not liking that to see that purple, the lavender in that position.
That's probably where the new couplet would be.
That could be some debris that's being picked up. The new couplet I'm anticipating is there. Live picture. You can see the whitish area. That's the on the left, center and left. That's the wall of rain that we're getting with that gust front and that little bow echo. Some rising air there. That darker little layer that's sort of hanging down like a layer cake is the ascent area. Does not look at this time as if there's a tornado there, but again, there could be some obscuration by all of this rain, but it's looking at this point like we have a strong ascent right there where that low-hanging portion is down, quickly followed then by winds blowing from left to right and a cloudburst of rain under that whiter area with some transition. That dark hanging cloud we're seeing there being somewhat what we would call a shelf cloud.
And that's what you're saying too. Yeah. This is going to kind of transition to the front end of that that gust front, and at least at this time we don't see this wall of darkness all the way down toward the ground. But again, very heavy rain, probably winds in excess of 50-60 miles per hour. You saw the lightning in through there, and what a difference too. If you look kind of in the foreground or in the lower end of the picture to when you go back into that white, I mean, it literally, the visibility just goes right to zero.
It's sunny day to blinding rain, basically, within a matter of seconds as this goes through.
All right, I want to go over to Chris and Kelly. They have been monitoring some different stuff for us. Guys, what's going on?
Jim, we understand the workers at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma are seeking shelter right now because of this tornado heading across the area. So this is a serious situation. And Greg, we've also had reports of baseball-sized hail. Tell everybody where you think that might be in relation to where the tornado is being tracked right now.
Well, typically the biggest hail is a few miles to the north of where the tornado would occur. But we're close to the radar here. The radar is this little cone of silence, this little black circle. So we're so close to the radar that we're not able to scan real high up into the hail forming altitudes of the storm. But my thinking is that the biggest hail is 2 or 3 miles to the south and east of Moore. There may be some hail, though, in this. This could be now a second flanking storm that's developing that we can't get up to high enough to see the top of it, that could be giving some hail. We're hoping that this is not debris that's causing the return here.
We haven't looked at a new storm relative image yet, which is probably in now. So let's see.
Yeah, it is in. I was having a look at it behind the scenes here, and it's greens are toward the radar, reds are away from the radar, but it's broader. It's off a couple miles here now to the due east of Norman, where that circulation is.
Which looks a little bit more like what we're seeing.
Very
here.
much like what we're seeing there. That we're seeing a broad rotation in that low-hanging the cloud there, right at the nose, really showing up well now how bright that white rain and maybe some hail shaft is there with the gust front that is wrapped around the tornado. The tricky part about this is the helicopter is probably far enough south and east that with this curving band of this bow echo, if the helicopter is looking here, there's a chance that some of the rain would obscure some kind of a tornado that was a little bit around the corner, if you will.
Right. Yeah, you can't see around.
We can't see the rain. I think backs around and goes back to the left, farther into that picture. So just because we don't see a tornado doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. It could be around the bend as that the rain shaft and the wall of rain turns back to the northwest.
But at least on a positive note, we didn't see a tight couplet transition up there either, right?
Yeah, and where we had seen that the couplet was right near the crest of that. Right. So we're thinking that the tornado is not there, that we probably would see it. But if something new formed a little bit farther to the north, some of that rain to the south would obscure our view of that. But that isn't the case at the moment, at least according to the radar.
These things certainly do cycle through, folks. We've seen this before where a storm can tornado and then, it becomes a little bit more downdraft dominated, and then eventually it starts to cycle back through. You get that hook or that appendage once again showing up, and right now we're kind of potentially in that transition. Right?
Yeah, we certainly are. These storms will cycle. Now, it is now the rotation is cycled very much like what we often see when storms are getting rotation in the comma head with the
included, essentially.
Yeah, with the comma punctuation mark back there. The strong rotation is actually now well embedded within the rain. We're seeing out little bands coming in toward it here. You can actually see this little spiral coming in, this spiral coming in. So the whole storm is almost like a mini hurricane, if you will, with all these bands revolving about that one location. But fortunately, not a real tight rotation that's indicating a tornado at this point, rather this broad metamorphosis of the storm. But that said, you can get new tornadoes form out on the leading edge of either here or here.
And it's interesting, we were commenting before we came on today about how it would have been nice if Norman had their dual pole radar, especially given the vicinity of where this is. We could see the finer detail within the finer detail, but they just don't have that installed.
Yeah, it's not at the National Weather Service site. They have research dual pole radars there that the National Weather Service locally may be able to be looking at.
And they may be looking at that and sharing some of that data. But at least right now, it appears like we don't have the same animal that we dealt with, let's say, 15 minutes ago, just to the west of Norman, of downtown Norman.
Yes, that's certainly the case. That it's not nearly as organized in terms of its rotation at this point as it was when we started the top of the hour.
Greg, since Oklahoma City is in the high risk tomorrow, what is the difference going to be in the storm structure potentially tomorrow than what we're looking at today?
Well, potentially the winds aloft could be a little bit faster tomorrow. The low-level jet could be a little bit faster tomorrow, which means that the low-level wind shear will be a little bit faster tomorrow. The issue for Oklahoma tomorrow is that sometimes as those faster winds come in, they bring in a little bit of the drier air from the south that makes it harder for the storms to form, especially with the main jet stream going much to the north. So there may be just a few thunderstorms, but they may spin like tops as a consequence. And of course, if the storms are limited in number, they don't interfere with each other as much. They benefit from a lot of sunshine before they form. They form right on the front, and bang, go tornadic. So it's a question of maybe not a whole lot of storms, but the ones that are there have a high tornado potential.
Yeah, Okay. Yeah, I want great answer to that question. Let's go over to Chris and Kelly.
And if you're just joining us right now here on the Weather Channel in this extended edition of Weather Center Live, we're watching some strong storms fire up right now. Tornado warning has been in effect for parts of Oklahoma, in particular Norman. There was rotation, reports of a tornado that we've been watching tonight.
In fact, a confirmed tornado. We've had baseball-sized hail as well. Our storm riders, who are storm chasers, are now going through the area where we've had reports of the touchdown just on the west side of Norman. We've got a picture, some live feed showing us where the storm riders are right now as they kind of drive through this area to see, look for downed trees, maybe down power lines, because we did get reports earlier of power flashes being reported.
And so now we're getting a look at the storm here from the ground. We have been looking courtesy of KFOR K4 in Oklahoma City from the helicopter, getting a fantastic view from the air. Now we're getting a different perspective here from the ground.
And we should hopefully be able to at least talk to them a little bit later on to see exactly what they find as they make their way through Norman, Oklahoma, to see if there's any damage to either homes or businesses, trees that may be down blocking roadways. We don't know that yet, but of course that is one of the duties that the storm chasers perform when they're out there, is to not only report a tornado sighting or hail, but also to keep people safe and let the authorities know where the worst of the damage might be.
Right, and oftentimes, as you said, they're the first ones on the scene because they're following it. So that's what we're watching right now here live on the Weather Channel. We're watching some storm chasers who are driving around in Norman right now after a reported tornado moved through the area, and we have been tracking it here for you live on the Weather Channel.
And remember, a tornado watch remains in effect, which means we could see more of this. So here's some tips. If you're in a mobile home, you want to leave that mobile home. That is not the safe place to be. Most tornadoes can destroy even tied down mobile homes. And if your community has a tornado shelter, you want to get there fast.
And remember, we do have live team coverage starting tomorrow in the field. Meteorologist Mike Seidel, Eric Fisher, Jim Cantori's with us right now, but he's heading out tomorrow.
That's right. So stay with us as we continue to bring you the very latest on a tornado possibly moving through Norman, Oklahoma. We're live on air as well as online.
If you're just joining us right now on the Weather Channel, we're monitoring live pictures coming into the Weather Channel. Sometimes we lose the signal there, but we're focusing right now on Oklahoma, in particular Norman, Oklahoma, K4, the affiliate there, with their helicopter watching these storms. Tornado warning has been in effect.
Right. Should be going away in just a couple of minutes unless they reissue it for Cleveland area.
They are saying now that it should expire at 4:30.
Okay, so that's the good news. And we also have crews on the ground. The storm rider team, their storm chasers, they are out there looking for any possible damage because we did have reports of a tornado touchdown, especially on the west side of Norman. We understand now that the workers at the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center, they are okay, as the possible tornado may have moved just to the north of them before weakening. That is a live picture, by the way. We mentioned the storm riders. That is a live feed of some of the cloud cover that they're seeing out there right now, and they will continue to monitor the conditions for us.
And there have been reports of power lines down with the storm that moved through Norman, Oklahoma. So the severe weather threat, we were expecting it to be a busy weekend. It's been a busy past couple of days. Things really going to be ramping up. Our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, issuing a Torcon 8 for some spots tomorrow. But already, this afternoon, this evening, we're seeing these storms fire up.
And an 8 means an 80% chance of seeing tornadoes within 50 miles. Right now, you can see where we have a tornado watch in effect. It does include those of you in Oklahoma City as well as Tulsa. To the north of that, into Kansas and western Missouri, that is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 10 o'clock Central Time. And within that, we are seeing several thunderstorms that are currently severe, but that recent tornado warning is expected to go away. That's on the south side of Oklahoma City there in Norman. That is set to expire in just a couple of minutes.
And we're also getting reports of some hail as well, and different sizes, pea size, getting reports of quarter size hail with some of these storms. But potentially we could see hail that's even bigger than that tonight and tomorrow.
And you can see some of the storms impacting places like Comanche and Caddo counties here in Oklahoma. Also, we've got the storms here in the southern part of Kansas. Not severe right now, but you certainly see the red showing up on that. That is some very heavy rain, possibly mixed with hail. There's a severe thunderstorm warning for you as well as we slide it a little bit more toward the east. So again, whether it's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, it doesn't matter. You need to be in your safe place. You need to get away from the windows, the exterior walls, get to your safe place right now, since this area is vulnerable for the possibility of tornadoes.
Yeah, so we're still seeing the threat for these strong storms. The yellow outlined area, that is a severe thunderstorm warning. We continue to monitor the breaking weather alert system here at the Weather Channel for the very latest storms and issuances of the severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings. You're looking right now at that line of them. All focused right now in Oklahoma, from Oklahoma City to the extreme southwest portion of the state. All severe thunderstorm warnings right now. Again, that red outlined area is the tornado warning that is set to expire right now.
And this is really just the beginning. We are expecting this to get a whole lot worse later tonight, and especially into Saturday. We talked about the very high threat of tornadoes, possibly large, long-lived tornadoes as well. We want to bring in Jim Cantori and our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, to talk more about what we can expect.
Yeah, guys, we're going to do that. I had Adam Dean prepare for us, so where we actually got the initial report of a tornado touchdown in the Norman area. In case you're just joining us just about a half hour ago, we had, again, reports of debris and power poles down. Let's take a look at this graphics 15 here. You can see it. Again, this is right here near US 9 and Southwest 24th. Again, right here in Norman. All right, there's the campus right in through there, and it apparently appears, I should say, that the tornado in some way, shape, or form has moved across this area here, dissipating near the Norman Regional Hospital and just north of campus. So this little area right in through here, probably about 10 blocks or so, potentially impacted. We're getting no further reports of structural damage. That is obviously great news, but what we were looking at a little while ago had a lot of us in big fear here. All right, let's move ahead until we get some of that information. Greg, now it's a hail threat.
Yeah, and the Norman is located right here, so the storm has undergone a little bit of a transition. We're well east now, 6 or 7 miles east of Norman, headed generally to the pink area, and the outlined yellow here, severe thunderstorm warning now rather than tornado warning for this storm.
Yeah, good news.
So taking a look then, this is today and into this evening. This is the forecast that we've had generated, and so we have severe thunderstorms where we're already getting them. There are watches in place. That may, as we go later into the nighttime, spread a little bit north as the next round begins overnight tonight. This is an area where we're getting the tornadoes, where we've had a torcon of 5 for today, 50% chance of a tornado, transitioning to a little bit less. We get up a little bit farther northeast there to a 4. So while that's not nearly as high as it is tomorrow, we've had that for today as well. For tomorrow, the time frame through about 10 p.m. or so, the lighter shaded red areas, the darker then after the time when people often are going to bed. Severe threat across these regions, with tomorrow a torcon of 8 for central half of Kansas, 7 for the central half of east of Nebraska, or the eastern half, I should say, of Kansas and Nebraska, and then central parts and western parts of the Oklahoma, not including the Panhandle, a 7 tomorrow also. So pretty high torcon values, with a lot of the warm sector wide open. We've had high the previous few days of the week has limited the amount of moisture, with some dry air flowing out of that. That's no longer the case. The Gulf of Mexico moisture is flowing north as far as that warm front will go, and that warm front itself tomorrow, which is why the torcon is 8 in Kansas, is often a focusing mechanism for the tornado threat.
And you mentioned something when I was asking you earlier, the difference between today and tomorrow. You said when these storms go, albeit they could be limited, they're going to spin fast.
Yeah. And part of the reason for that is that tomorrow we'll have a low-level jet just a few thousand feet above the ground that'll be a lot faster than it is today. So we'll have those strong south-southeast surface winds, south-southwest winds aloft, and then higher aloft, the jet stream where the jet aircraft fly, what we call a jet streak, a wind maximum in the jet stream. And part of the reason that some of the storms may be a little bit limited tomorrow is that it's not a big angling disturbance in the jet stream that's going to bodily move out over top of this warm, moist air. It's a more what we call a channel disturbance that's going to slide along. And so areas out to the east of that wind maximum get some lifting. So the northern parts of this triangular area, the warm sector, will get the lifting. Nebraska will get the lifting. And some of the timing for this, for the biggest cities, may be a little bit on the late side. It's the evening, and that's dangerous. Some of the threat could be after dark. For Wichita, you see some of the main time for the main tornado threat. Some of the places could get some earlier rounds of thunderstorms. Oklahoma City, it's getting toward dark. Omaha, probably even some thunderstorms earlier in the day, and then the tornado threat could be any time from mid-afternoon to after midnight. Kansas City, again, it's pretty late. So these are some of the biggest cities and some of the biggest torcon threat values. We go into Sunday, the surface low, that same jet streak running up away from the Gulf of Mexico, but pulling the moisture with it. Look how far north the warm front gets. And so there's that wind maximum. The front portions of that, though, running away from the moisture, but Wisconsin, along the warm front there, probably getting the moisture enough that we get the highest tornado threat there.
And that's my question, though. Are we going to have enough of that deep moisture that far north?
Yeah, that's the issue, and that's why instead of an 8 for Saturday in the prime area, I've got a 5 for Wisconsin for Sunday. And then down where we don't have a whole lot of upper forcing, but we probably get a lot of southeast winds angling their way toward the cold front, pushing that way. I've given a 4 down into Texas, and mostly just 3s in the intervening area, not quite as much of a tornado threat in between.
All right, Greg, I want to take this live picture again. K4 out there looking at almost what appears to be the mothership out there, or certainly a low base. Just got a report of hail up to golf ball size, Greg, with that storm. Right at the Oklahoma City radar site, which we can actually see the donut hole where the site is. It's actually covering the ground there, so hail covering the ground with that storm. It's a big hail producer right now.
Yeah, and we have that on radar. I've zoomed in just a little bit, and the storm has retransitioned itself into a hook echo with a lot of inflow coming into that notch there. The rear flank downdraft wrapping around the donut hole where the radar is, the cone of silence as it's called, to block out so much ground clutter that occurs near the radar. But it is transitioned again to a pretty well-defined supercell with that low-hanging portion that we were seeing there to the left will be the wall cloud. They like to sit right in that place where the inflow enters the storm, and then the air rises up into the body of the storm off toward the north and east. So if I show the velocities with this, we may see some broad rotation, not the biggest rotation we've ever seen, but some rotation that's generally taking place right across that weak echo region area.
Is that too close to the radar to potentially see the rotation? I mean, it's pretty low, so you want to see the real low rotation, but is it almost too close?
Yeah, I could tip it up a little bit or look at some of the other elevation angles that we were seeing there real close to the ground. So if there was a tornado there, that would be what we would want to see. Let me go a little bit higher here and take a look at some of that. It's still not showing any real well-defined rotation if we go a little bit higher either. So at this point, keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't generate any more concentrated rotation.
Either way, if you live north and east of where that radar dome is, expect some hail. And in some cases, it may be covering the ground.
That includes Pink, where they had a destructive tornado on May 10th, 2010. Mike Bettis and I were there, looked at the damage.
All right, thanks, Greg. We appreciate that. Let's go back to Kelly and Chris.
All right, guys, we're starting to hear reports of damage coming in.
And we want to go right now to meteorologist Mark Elliott, who's getting a look at some of the pictures that are coming into the Weather Channel. Hi, Mark.
Hey guys, yeah, I heard one report that one of the high schools had their windows blown out, but I haven't seen pictures of that yet. What I have seen pictures of are images of the tornado as it was approaching Norman. So check out this one that is coming in to us from Andy Lester. He's, you can see that obvious darkening sky, and it's lowered behind those houses, so can't tell if it's on the ground in this shot. But here's another one across the field. This one was sent in by Ali Bueller, and they said that that is the campus of in Norman. That is the campus right as the storm was moving on through. And this one came in over TwitPic. It says, just survived tornado hitting our house. You can obviously see the damage out there. Lots of tree branches down, lots of limbs down, but it does appear that the houses across the street are okay. And I assume that the house that Jen Tucker was in was okay too, as she went outside and was snapping those photos. Now, if you are on our website, we've got the Breaking Now banner up. It says tornado outbreak possible over the weekend. If you click into that, you can see all of the threat areas, and on the homepage, Track Today's Storms brings you into the severe weather tracker in case you do need to leave your television. All right, guys, back to you.
Thanks, Mark. And this is still a developing situation after the storm moved through. Now what we're looking at here, possible damage. You see the sparks there from the power pole.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to see that. There could be a fire ensuing after something like that. The storm chasers are on the ground. We're looking at some damage there on the bottom right of your screen, possible roof damage of that house or structure.
Stay with us. We have continuing coverage right now on Weather Center Live. Storms firing up now and a possible tornado there in Normal.
If you are just joining us, we have breaking news of a tornado touchdown apparently here in Norman, Oklahoma. What you're looking at are live pictures from our affiliate KFOR K4 TV. From the chopper vantage point, you can see a power pole that appears to be sizzling, perhaps catching on fire, and some damage surrounding that power pole.
Yeah, we're looking at, you can see some of the sparks coming off of this as well. Just a little bit ago, a little bit more than a half an hour ago, we were watching a strong storm move through the Norman area. So now the helicopter from K4 is back over the same area. You can see there's a police car there, and possibly on the left, this could be some damage from what moved through earlier, possibly a tornado.
And we see a lot of flashing lights. Obviously, the emergency vehicles are on their way to this site to make sure people stay away, because remember, when power lines come down, they could be live. You don't want to go anywhere near them. They could be very dangerous, and certainly some of that debris is dangerous as well. You don't want to go near that.
And we're looking possibly parts of a roof torn off. It's hard to tell. I mean, we don't know what the building looked like, 3 hours ago. But you look and you see the utility pole, and you see there's sparking there. It looks like something has happened, and that doesn't look like, for most, given what you would think of most structures, not typically what you would expect. So this could be some damage we're looking at.
And Jim Cantori was saying moments ago, this does seem to be the same area where we were tracking it earlier. It kind of corresponds to that Google image we were looking at of Norman, Oklahoma, and where that potential tornado touchdown may have occurred. Again, this prompted evacuations of even National Weather Service employees and the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. They had to seek shelter when this tornado warning was going just a little while ago.
And these storms, they can pop up, move through, and then they're gone, but you can't let your guard down yet, because still storms out there. In fact, just to the west and southwest of what we're looking at right now, there are still some pretty strong storms out there right now.
Yeah, no tornado warnings as of right now, but we do have several counties that we're monitoring severe thunderstorm warnings. What you're seeing in the red box, that is a tornado watch, including Oklahoma City and Tulsa until 9 o'clock Central. And the yellow box further north, including Wichita over into southwestern Missouri, that is a severe thunderstorm watch until 10 o'clock Central. We could be talking large hail. We've already had reports of baseball-size hail, as well as gusty winds and even the potential of a tornado touchdown like we had reported in Norman just a little while ago.
And so you can see the strongest part of this storm, the deepest reds, even a few flashes of white, moving off to the east, so moving off to the right as you look at your TV here from Norman, with all of the lightning now associated with these storms. But also, if you look off to the left, there's still more storms firing up, and that's where we have the majority of the severe thunderstorm warnings right now.
All right, we want to take you back down to the ground and take a look. This is live, by the way. We're seeing this for the first time as well in Norman, Oklahoma. Some of the damage that we're seeing firsthand. You're watching it right along with us. This is live streaming coming into the Weather Channel, and you can see the folks walking around and just trying to assess what exactly took place here. But it looks to be like something is down on the ground that maybe shouldn't be, especially since it's leaning up against that car right there.
And if you're just joining us here on the Weather Channel, we're following this breaking news. We're back in the air, courtesy of K4 out of Oklahoma City. This is a look at Norman, Oklahoma. Tornado warning earlier, strong storm moved through. We were tracking it live here on the Weather Channel. Now we're looking at areas that could have some damage. This happened just moments ago. So we're still getting the reports, still trying to make sense of exactly what has been damaged and where we're looking.
And in fact, earlier, K4 may have actually captured the tornado in progress. Our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes and Jim Cantori, were watching it live on the air. It was really difficult to say exactly, if it was a tornado, it may have been rain wrapped and difficult to see. But obviously, this is a dangerous situation that's only going to get worse in the next couple of days.
And that's something that we're keeping a close eye on with the threat for tomorrow, which is really increasing.
And we want to talk more about the storm that hit here in Norman. And let's go over to Jim and Dr. Forbes.
All right, yeah, Greg's going to recap this for us. We've been watching the storm for about an hour or so, and it never really got its act together. But finally, getting close to Norman, we saw what we, sometimes think is the kicker, the rear flank downdraft.
Yeah, indeed. And this is what we were seeing about 1 hour ago. All of these spiraling bands coming in toward this one rotation center. Here's Norman. And so we were about 5 or 6 miles off to the west. I'll step it forward 5 minutes at a time. You'll see that it seemed to gust out just a little bit. Then right about here is the time when we were getting the tornado report. We're getting some surging forward there, some strong lean back of the inflow there, and a definite rotation was showing up right in there that then moved right into Norman. I'll step it ahead one more time step, or a few more time steps, let it loop through for you, and it quickly gusted out then as it came across downtown Norman. So we are in a tornado watch for Oklahoma. It's a Torcon of 5 tomorrow. Some places in Kansas have a Torcon of 8.
We'll outline those for you coming up, guys. Stick around. We had a tornado in Norman, Oklahoma just recently.
to our continuing coverage of a tornado touchdown reported in Norman, Oklahoma.
And that threat is still with us tonight. We've been tracking that reported tornado as it went through Norman. Now we're continuing to monitor the latest images and reports coming in. This happened just a little while ago, less than an hour ago this was happening. And right now this is where that threat remains tonight for tornadoes, the red shaded areas, which includes Oklahoma City. This is where that threat and conditions favorable for the development of tornadoes. And then there's a severe thunderstorm watch still in effect for parts of Kansas and Missouri.
That's right. Still some dangerous cells out there. Possible rotation. We want to toss it over to our severe weather expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, and Jim Cantori. And we're also looking at some of the damage, guys, that's coming in, some of the video from some of the storm chasers that are on the scene, as well as KFOR, our affiliate. And look at that, Jim. You can see the power pole flickering there, some flashes, certainly, and a lot of what looks to be some debris on the ground. This, of course, is from our affiliate, KFOR.
Definitely some substantial damage there. What we're seeing right at this instant is some roofing damage that is probably in the EF0 range, but we saw some walls down that could be, depending on the strength of the structure, could be in the EF2 range. So what we could be seeing here in Norman is some combination from widespread wind from the roof-line downdraft of this bow echo that surged through, and some embedded tornado damage causing some of the stronger damage.
Yeah, and the problem is too is all rain wrapped. You're watching this thing kind of rain wrapped all the way through. Very, very hard to see. Now, the same storm, guys, that we were talking about that produced the damage in Norman weakened a little bit. Now it's cycling again. It could potentially produce another tornado. Explain that to us.
Yeah, it certainly could. Here is Norman down in the lower left corner, Oklahoma City upper left corner. So we've moved well to the east of Norman now, but you can see how the storm has spiraled around into this little hook echo again, this little ball area tornado trying to form there. That's going to take it very close to the small community of Pink. Ultimately then, if it keeps going toward the Tecumseh area. There's a couple of other storms farther down to the southwest. No tornado warnings on them, but
interrupt you, but that's pretty heavy structural damage.
That's heavy structural damage there.
That's a live. That's KFOR again. Why don't you just take that full, guys, right now, because we don't have any imminent tornado threats. Let's go ahead and take that full, so and you can see an entire roof,
big chunk of roof off,
huge chunk of roof
maybe
gone.
Some of the wall down there. So that's again probably into the EF1, maybe EF2 range. One of these big warehouse kind of buildings. There has been some substantial damage. We don't quite know the full extent or the full magnitude of this damage, but some substantial damage there. Looks like the wall's actually standing, but the roof is gone in that location. So some serious damage there in places.
And it took a heck of a wind to pick up that whole chunk and move it.
Big chunk of the roof has blown off there, that's for sure.
All right, guys. Again, we're just getting these images in, and as the chopper, the K4 chopper heads around, I'm trying to think.
You're seeing right down inside the stacks of boxes. It looks like offices or a warehouse of some kind.
And we're getting reports of damage. This started somewhere near Highway 9, Southwest 24th Street, and moved off to the east-northeast toward the regional hospital, where it was said to dissipate. So, you know, you've got about 7 to 10 blocks in there where you have potentially pictures like these, Greg. And you mentioned a combination of the tornado and potentially, you know, the gust front as it moved on through.
Yeah, and a couple of other storms. No tornado warnings at the moment, but a couple of other storms down there. The Anadarko heading toward the Turtle Creek, the Chickasha area, and then areas just to the north of Aldous in Oklahoma with the dangerous storms, and one more yet down farther south and west of that in the, I believe that's Hollis, Oklahoma area. So hail, we've had hail, golf ball size or larger, and some damaging winds, and a chance for tornadoes.
And more to come. Let's switch gears and talk about tomorrow. Potential big tornado outbreak in through here. Let's talk about the Torcon indices you've given.
So the red area is for the time up till about 10 p.m. tomorrow evening. It includes the southeast South Dakota, southwest Minnesota, down across eastern halves of Nebraska and Kansas, eastern and everything but the panhandle of western Oklahoma. The darker shaded reds, that's after many people have gone to bed, spreads a little bit farther east. And the tornado condition index, they're pretty high values. There's central Kansas, eastern half of Kansas, 8 on the 10-point scale, 80% chance of a tornado within 50 miles. Eastern half of Nebraska, 70% chance. The central western parts of Oklahoma there, 7 chances out of 10 as well. We head into, and the ingredients for this is a broadening amount of, an increasing amount of warm moist air, a warm front lifting with a little bit of shifting winds on that. The focus maybe a little bit the threat for Kansas. Jet stream that's angling its way towards some of that warm sector. Probably the bigger concentration of storms in Nebraska and Kansas, lesser so as you get into the Texas and Oklahoma portions of the threat area. Some of the timings for some of the biggest cities may be toward the evening and maybe after dark for Wichita, for Oklahoma City, for Omaha, Kansas City, but want to be cautionary here. There could be several rounds of this, some with a warm front earlier in the day than the main threat. Some of these are closer to the cold front times with some high torque-on numbers for places where a lot of people live. There may be 5.5 million or more people affected in the threat area tomorrow. As we head into Sunday, the weather system slowly moves east. Surface low pretty strong for this time of year. Warm air may be moving with a warm front all the way into Wisconsin. The jet stream angling its way toward Wisconsin with a wind max. Out ahead of that wind max is usually the most dangerous area, so that's why I've given the highest torque on for Sunday for Wisconsin. 50% chance of a tornado within 50 miles. And then we had a little bit farther south. Not so much of a threat in between from Illinois to Arkansas, about a 3, but with moist air coming off the Gulf of Mexico and the cold front coming in, I've given there a torque on of 4. Some pretty strong thunderstorms with maybe a chance of a couple of them perhaps producing a tornado as well.
All right, so a big change today. We've gotten rid of our high pressure system with the dry air. It's moistened up. We've already had a tornado near Norman just about an hour ago, actually, is when this occurred, and we have had confirmed damage that we've seen from K-Force chopper as well. Kelly and Chris, back over to you.
And guys, we will continue to monitor the situation there in Norman, Oklahoma, plus the threat of more severe weather as we go through the night. But for now, we are going to head back to our originally scheduled programming.
But keep in mind, here at the Weather Channel, we have dozens of experienced meteorologists. We're keeping an eye on what's going on, including what happened earlier. This is from a little bit earlier as the storm was moving through Norman, Oklahoma. So with all of us here at the Weather Channel, we're keeping an eye on this. And if anything happens that looks like an imminent threat, we will break into regularly scheduled programming to bring you the very latest and help keep you safe.
And keep in mind, we still do have a tornado watch in effect for this area. So now is the time to have that plan. Know where to go, have a way to be notified. Of course, the basement is the best place to be, but if you don't have one, you want to get into a small interior room like a closet or bathroom that doesn't have any windows. We want you to be safe.
So we're still seeing some of the damage. You can see some of the shingles being torn off. Parts of roofs have been torn off. And we will keep you posted here with more live weather updates. And of course, we're already planning to be live all day long tomorrow to cover the severe weather threat. And we're back at the top of the next hour.